some of these bankers and lenders need to be put in shackles and handcuffs and find themselves in the jailhouse because they knew what they were doing when they were stealing from the people.
It's one of his last sermons before the U.S. election, and Reverend Graylin Hagler is taking the gloves off.
And even when I lie down, I'll lift up the word of hope.
With the U.S. economy crashing, events are unfolding on a biblical scale. Millions of people losing their homes, unemployment spiking, an economic storm descending. Meanwhile, the U.S. government is devoting unprecedented resources to shore up its banking system, while help for homeowners, like this middle-class congregation, remains a campaign promise rather than a reality.
Now we want to unfreeze the credit markets. And that's admirable, but we also got to deal with folks who are losing their homes in every neighborhood. When you drive around and you see the for sale signs are really people who've had their homes foreclosed on them. There needs to be some relief that comes to your street and my street. There needs to be some relief that comes there rather than all of that going up to Wall Street.
Talking about the mortgage crisis in church is nothing new for Reverend Hagler. He's on the board of the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, an unusual nonprofit group that is both a mortgage broker and a movement. NACA not only provides home loans to low-income Americans, it also advocates on their behalf, fighting predatory lending and cutting deals with banks to fend off foreclosures and keep people in their homes. It's just one example of a group fighting back against the larger forces behind the financial crisis. When the $700 billion bailout deal was first being negotiated in Congress, Reverend Hagler and a group of NACA members descended on the office of Democratic Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, accusing him of selling out homeowners in favor of rewarding the Wall Street titans who had created the crisis in the first place.
Stop the bailouts! What about us?
In Washington, D.C., though, like on Wall Street, that is not the only explanation of how the crisis was born. On the eve of the election, the blame game is in full swing.
What started to be an innocent legislation under the Clinton administration in having every American wanting to own a house, it led to providing subprime loans to people who are not able to afford it. That's where the problem is.
You feel sorry for them, that they're hurting, that they're losing their homes, but they did this to themselves. To a certain extent, individual responsibility comes into play, and you have to take your lumps.
This idea that the whole housing collapse that has impacted the entire world happened as a result of poor people trying to buy homes in America. I mean, first of all, it's stupid, it's illogical, and it's wrong, and it's insulting. Given the history of this nation, a history that has for years blocked off home ownership for large segments of this country, in a matter of weeks, we were able to transfer $700 billion in wealth from the taxpayers of this nation to the wealthiest individuals of this nation at lightning speed. So in terms of priorities, that really says something about our nation's leaders.
The question of priorities is the one looming large over this entire landscape. With a new president about to be elected in the teeth of a financial crisis and inheriting an epic national debt, deepened by a multi-stage bailout that will likely top $1 trillion. Heading into a severe recession, the next president will face all the pressures of growing poverty and hardship. But the pressure of that mountain of debt will be there too. Debt that is also leverage in political terms.
The federal government, along with the state and local governments, are so strapped that that is going to be used as an excuse to begin privatizing the roads, the highways, the railroads, public real estate. Any assets in the public domain are about to be sold off and privatized.
And they're saying, oh my God, we just had this huge bailout, it might be over $1 trillion. We can't afford anything, you know, we have to roll back these programs. Certainly we can't expand health care, we're going to have to cut it back. So they're going to argue this is an opportunity, this is a necessity that we now have to cut these programs that they've wanted to cut all along. They'd be, you know, if the opposite had happened, they'd be arguing we should cut them.
What the result is a tremendous emotional conflict. People have been told they cannot have national health care. You can't afford schools and roads and bridges. You can't afford $30 billion for this. But when Wall Street snapped its fingers in 10 days in ill-formed legislation, it could grab $700 billion.
That conflict is not lost on American voters, who overwhelmingly disapproved of the bailout and are deeply unhappy with the direction in which the country is headed. And so some see this historic moment as an opportunity for a New Deal.
It opens up possibilities in the sense that we have unemployed resources that can be productively utilized in areas that have been neglected. So extend health care. Same thing with global warming. What a great way to put all these construction workers that were building homes, overbuilt homes. We have no use for homes, so we're not going to have them building homes anytime soon. Let's have them retrofit those homes. Let's make them more energy efficient.
The tone of the nation has moved in such a direction so that people will not see this as some sort of evil government takeover, but as really the responsibility of government to make life better for all of us.
And that is very much what Barack Obama is promising.
America, we can choose an economy that rewards work and creates jobs and fuels prosperity, starting with the middle class. We can choose to invest in health care for our families and education for our kids and renewable energy for our future. We can come together as one nation and one people and once more choose our better history.
As the financial crisis has deepened, Obama's poll numbers have soared, with the vast majority of voters saying they trust him more than John McCain to fix the economy. The question, if he wins, is how much he will actually be able to achieve. And maybe more importantly, which sector of American society will be able to put the most pressure on the president-elect.
The question, the challenge, will Obama be authentically a progressive, or is that just a marketing campaign? And secondly, more fundamentally for his future, will he be Herbert Hoover or will he be Franklin Roosevelt? It's going to take a tremendous act of will for him to distance himself from the people who have created the problems.
I don't envy the next president or the next Treasury Secretary. I think we're in for some tough times here.
Although it looks like we've lost all this money and the economy is collapsing, the real economy, our ability to produce goods and services, has not changed. So we're not a poorer country in that sense if we run the economy right.
I think that this might be a wake-up call for America to say we need to start valuing different things in life besides just how much you can accumulate, besides what you just can have. How many little baubles can you have?
If there is one thing that we can be sure of, come 3 or 4 years later, people will continue to revert to their animal instincts. It has been proven time and time again, and people will do it again, and it will happen.
Finally, when the economy comes unglued and nobody has escaped the judgment, everybody now is mad. Well, they should have been mad back a long time ago when people were saying it ain't right, it ain't right, it ain't right.
Capitalist democracy gets its moral underpinnings from capitalism submitting to being governed by democracy. What you're taught in school is that the economy is the means to achieve social goals, and that finance is a means to facilitate commerce. And what you found out was that the servant's servant was the master's master. That finance was dictating policy, finance was dictating what the economy did and rearranging the economy. Democracy doesn't govern, money governs. And capitalism is not legitimately governed by democracy any longer. And that, in an extreme fashion, is what has taken place in the United States in recent years.
That's all the time we have for this week's edition of Inside USA. From the Stock Exchange on Wall Street. Until next time, so long.